Hi everyone, I'm Shelley and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another Question the Narrative video, and today's topic is telepathy a vestigial ability? So in order to get started, let's first of all go over exactly what I mean by a vestigial ability. So vestigial, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and we're going to read the second definition because it makes more sense in this case because telepathy is not a body part or an organ. So we're going to go down here. Vestigial means remaining as the last small part of something that existed before. And so what is telepathy in that case? Telepathy is communication from one mind to another by extrasensory means. So when I'm asking if telepathy could be a vestigial remnant, what I'm saying is telepathy something that was once innate in us as human beings that we no longer have? Or in some cases may show up from time to time in some people, but in most people it's something that is non-existent, or at least seems to be. And I'm not really going to be able to give you a whole lot of answers in this video, but that's okay because it's called Question the Narrative. My purpose of this video today is more or less to hear what you may have experienced when it comes to these sorts of things. Because I've got to say that when it comes to hearing the word telepathy, or it's sometimes known as a form of ESP, people, they blow it off because they will either say that it's a pseudoscience, or they will say that it is some sort of new age mysticism, or, other people will just say, well, that's just a bunch of kooky stuff that doesn't exist. So when it comes to this, a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to come across as crackpots. But I've had myself personally some very interesting episodes in my life where it does seem that from time to time I am able to have this ability. And this isn't something that I can say that I can do whenever I choose to. It's never happened in that way. It's always something that just happens naturally out of the blue. And I'll get into that in just a bit. Because again, if you have had any experiences like this, I would love to hear about them in the comments because I'm trying to make sense of this all. And I'm wondering if this is something that may actually be left behind from the garden. Is telepathy something that Adam and Eve shared with each other in the garden? And indeed, may they have even shared it with God in the garden. But then when the fall happened and they were expelled from the garden, is this something that left that they no longer had the ability to do? And no, I do not have any Bible verses to back this up. And I'm going to just say that right from the outset. The reason that I'm wondering this, though, is because if this is something that is innate in some of us, it was obviously placed there by our Creator. And so if we would have it now, we know that back in the garden, when Adam and Eve were created, they were created exactly as God wanted them to be. And over time, we have been de-evolving, so to speak. So we don't have likely the abilities that Adam and Eve had. Is this one of those abilities that we may have lost? That's really the question that I have. And is this something that still does come out from time to time in people? Again, I'm not talking about fortune tellers or mind readers, in a tent at a carnival or something like that. I'm talking about just everyday things that just all of a sudden some really uncanny experiences start to happen. So even in psychology today, it says, is brain-to-brain communication possible? Here's what research finds. Extrasensory perception refers to information that is perceived outside of the five senses. This includes phenomena such as telepathy, clairvoyance, and knowledge of future events. Since these phenomena cannot be overtly seen or measured, they are often regarded as unbelievable. However, recent research explores the possible biological mechanisms behind such phenomena. mirror neurons. Telepathy refers to communication outside of the known senses. Many studies have demonstrated that we can, quote, read other people's minds because we have neurons that act as automatic mirrors. In fact, we can grasp the intentions and emotions of others automatically. In 2007, psychology professor Gregor Domes and his colleagues found evidence that the ability to interpret subtle social cues can be enhanced by oxytocin, a hormone that increases trust and social approach behavior. It is not such a stretch to imagine that we can pick up the emotions and intentions of others around us. But can this be done when long distances separate people? And then it gives some examples and explanations of long distance communication and invisible communication. I'll leave a link in the description for this article in case you wanted to read it. But again, I really have to point out, because I know that I'm going to have some people in the comments saying that equating this to psychics and all of the things that we're told to avoid. And no, this is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about a natural ability that we seem to be able to have to at least have some sort of mental communication with other people. And what I've at least found in my own experience is that it is those that I am close to. And it certainly would be natural to have this with someone that you are closer to, because just as the first article explained, this is something that you can pick up off of someone's emotions. If you are someone who is very empathetic, some people might call you an empath, but again, I don't really use that word myself. I would just say that you are able to pick up on someone's emotions, or you have very well developed or a very sensitive intuition. So a lot of times it will be easy to pick up on cues from other people by just reading their body language. But that's not really what I'm talking about either. What I am talking about even surpasses that. And I'm going to give some examples of that. And some of it may not be so much telepathy. Some of it may even get into the realm of precognition, at least with the things that I have experienced in my life. And again, I just really want to know if anyone else has anything that has happened like this to them either. So I'll start back from my childhood. When I was a child, I remember telling my friends all the time that things that I dreamed would happen. And one thing that I specifically dream, one thing that I specifically remember from my childhood is that I had a dream about a pair of gray shoes. And then that day my mother took me to the store and she bought me a pair of gray shoes. I know. Insignificant, right? So I'm not out there saying that I should be going on like a TV show locating, suspects and things like that. It's nothing like that. It's just these little insignificant things that seem to have popped up throughout my lifetime. And that is the clearest one that I can remember from my childhood, but I do remember telling my friends all the time that these sorts of things happened. So I know that most of you have probably had the experience of back when we still had alarm clocks that played music when the alarm went off. You would be having a dream that had a song in it, and then you would wake up and that song would be playing on the alarm clock, and you would think to yourself, "Oh wow, I was dreaming about the exact song that was playing when my alarm went off." When in actuality, what really happened is that since you were still sleeping and likely in a dream when your alarm clock went off, you heard the alarm going off and somehow it incorporated it into your dream. And then it just made you think that you dreamt it first and then it happened. You just heard it. And I completely understand that. That is something that happens to a lot of people. However, several times I have been driving in the car without the radio on, and I will have a song in my head for at least 10 seconds. And then I will turn the radio on and same thing. That song will be on at the exact spot that it was at in my head. And so this isn't something where it was a dream. And this wasn't something where I was hearing it somewhere and then just thought that I, thought of it ahead of time. No, this is something that the radio was not on. And I was thinking of the song for quite a while, at least 10 seconds before turning on the radio and finding that was on. And again, that's not really something that is telepathy either. we're getting to that. I'm just kind of showing you the basis of these really weird things that just they seem to happen to me, and I do know some other people that these things happen to also. In fact, at one of my jobs, I used to work retail, and the assistant store manager, she asked me the one time if I ever had things like that happen to me, because she said she could sense that about me because she had the same things happen to her. So it was just weird that she was able to pick up on that, because I certainly wasn't able to pick up on it with her. But she noticed that about me, and it's something that has always stuck with me. But getting back to the telepathy, because that is the one that seems to happen to me the most. One very significant thing that I can remember is when my oldest son was about 3 or 4 years old, and I took him to a playground that was across the street from the house that we were living in at the time. And he was across the playground from me. I was still able to see him, but he was just a ways away, and I saw him climbing up the ladder of a slide that was pretty high, and I thought to myself in my head, Brendan, be careful. And he looked at me from across the way, and he yelled to me, Mommy, who just said be careful? And that that shocked me. But that wasn't the only weird thing. I think that my son probably has some things that happen to him like this as well. So another thing that happened with my oldest son, I was working at the same retail store as that I mentioned before with the assistant manager. And my son was there, and at that time he was probably about 7 or 8. And I introduced him to one of the other cashiers, and I said to him, "This is Rebecca." And my son said to her, "You're Rebecca Hoffman." And that was her last name. He had never met her before, and I had never mentioned her before, let alone her last name. I never even talked about her when I was at home. And she, from that time on, like, she would talk about it every single time that I worked with her, about how my son somehow knew her last name just out of thin air. And yeah, I think that he gets a lot of these experiences like I do, like his mother. In everyday conversations with my husband or with my daughter, especially my 20-year-old daughter, the one who has the baby, we will just be driving in the car, and neither one of us will be speaking. And all of a sudden, I would just get some weird thought in my head that had nothing to do with anything that was going on. And I would say it, and she will say to me, Mom, that is exactly what I was just thinking about. And this is something that happens all the time. And again, it's nothing that had anything to do with anything that we were doing that day. Or if we had been having a conversation before that, nothing to do with the conversation, just some completely weird off the wall thing that I would say, and my daughter would say to me, Mom, how did you know I was thinking of that? And the same thing happens with my husband as well. And he thinks it's so weird, getting back to the other sorts of things that happen to me. At times he'll express hope that something's going to happen, and he will say to me, Shelly, don't say anything, because if you say it, it's going to happen. And that is something I don't know. I think that it's just some sort of, like I said before, well-developed intuition. I don't know. And as you can see, this whole video is just me talking, because I'm trying to figure all of these things out, trying to figure what it really is. How is this possible? Where do these things come from? How many of us are able to do these things and just don't even know it? And would there be a way to develop these abilities? Because again, I wouldn't be able to do it if I tried. It's just so many weird things like this. It has almost become normal for these things to happen to me, or thinking about someone that I hadn't seen in a really, really long time, or thinking that I see them, but it wasn't really them. And then all of a sudden, a week later, I will see that person. And I'm pretty sure that some of you before have commented things like that have happened to you. And so I would just love to hear your stories, to know that I'm not alone, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to equate this to some sort of mysticism or anything. I'm just figuring out, is this an ability that we once had that is in our brain, and it's just something that we have as mankind, as we have gone along through time, we've just lost the ability to do, or have just forgotten. I don't know, but that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below. And if you like my work and would like to support my channel, I will leave a link in the description for my channel membership, or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.